Hi, my name is Megan Everett. I'm the Community Director on Warframe.
Hi, I'm Rebecca Ford. I am the Creative Director on Warframe.
So the first thing I'd like to ask is, what's it been like seeing this game evolve just exponentially and working with the community, and you keep doing these awesome updates? What's it been like seeing this game grow and evolve?
It's been 11 years now of Warframe, and it's kind of crazy where we started to where we are now and where we want to go with it, which is 1999 and beyond. But I've been here for 11 years. Reb more than me. Reb brought me onto the team, but seeing our game grow from this small game with their founders program, and then now we're 11 years later, millions of players, and just, we're introducing our 58th Warframe. We have over 100 Warframes altogether with primes and our many quests. So it has honestly been crazy. I actually remember my first years in the studio and thinking to myself, wow, what's the game gonna be like in 5 years? Are we still gonna be around? Because we're a free-to-play game, and that's really rare. And then so to be here 11 years later and still cooking up things. And I've been saying for a while that if people want Warframe, we're gonna keep playing it until zero players. Even if there's one, we'll still do Warframe updates. So yeah, we're here in Tokyo Game Show, and we're showing some awesome stuff.
Yeah, it took us 11 years to get a booth at Tokyo Game Show. So if you map it out, maybe in 20 years we'll have a booth in a different country because it's been so long. But yeah, we're super excited to be here. The game has been our livelihood for all of my adult life, so it's kind of all I know, and in that regard it's all I want to know. So like Megan said, we're going to make it as long as people give us the chance to do it, and the community has supported us through ups and downs, and the future of Warframe is something we're trying to plan with fate on our side or not. So we're excited about Kome, which is launching very soon, and then of course 1999, which you can look forward to at the end of the year sometime in the winter. Not maybe cold, maybe not, we'll see.
Can you walk us through the process when your team decides to do new Warframes and what involves from the implementation into the final being put in the game? Let's use the Kome 3 Warframes for example. How long do those take to develop, throw in the game, and make sure they're different than any other Warframe you've had in there before that?
So coming up with Warframe ideas is certainly, sometimes it comes right away and you know exactly what you want to make, and other times it's a document that has been sitting for 4 years, 3 years, 2 years. And for us, this year, every Warframe in 2024 we've had on paper at some point with a really strong basis for the kit. We did Dante at the beginning of the year. He's sort of a wizard with books and spells, and then Jade, who is a choir angel frame, and now Kome is our first Lady Luck or RNG and dice rolling Warframe, which credit to Pablo, our design director, who has wanted to make an RNG based frame for a long time. And when this update started coming together thematically and aesthetically, it was the perfect time because we had the idea of the strings of fate and the dice of fate. So it was just we can go all in, we can make it so that there's dice rolls and there's strings of fate. And for her, this is actually probably one of the closest we've worked up to the deadline on a frame because we're trying to balance RNG so aggressively. So it's been more challenging than usual, but it's turned out more unique than usual. So it's like a double-edged sword. And then we already know, it's the time of saying this, we know every frame for next year already also. So we are super inspired right now. We're sort of in we have a lot of momentum as a team that we know the themes and the kits generally for the entire next year. So we're prepped, we're locked in, as the cool kids say. So yeah,
I think Rev covered most of that. One thing that I find really cool about our team is, like you said, there's sometimes just documents that have been sitting there, and I think what's really fun is seeing an asset of a concept for a Warframe and then looking at that and thinking, okay, what are those abilities going to be? Because as an 11-year-old game, you want to keep it fresh, you want to keep it interesting. Hence the RNG Warframe aspect of it all. Very new to Warframe in terms of Warframe abilities and making that unique, but we have such an arsenal of Warframes, and I think it feels like they touch on everything. We got the wizard, we got the ice guy, we got the fire girl, we got everything, it feels like. And so every single time the team comes up with an idea, Pablo with the RNG and that kind of being a dream for him to do that, I'm always blown away by the fact that we can still come up with ideas. And like Reb said, we got next year kind of planned out in terms of that. But I think, the good thing about having so many varieties of Warframes is it might not be one person's play style, but there's so many other ones that everyone can play. So you kind of try to touch on everything. You want some supports, you want some tanks, you want some crazy RNG stuff in there, and you just kind of experiment and see what happens. And then if it doesn't work out, you rework it in 5 years, and it's a new frame. It's great. Like Caliban's getting a rework. It's great.
So you mentioned before that you guys have the frames already kind of decided, almost a year in advance, but what role does the community play, and does that affect the role of the frames you are working for 12 months down the line?
The role the community plays in helping us guide our compass towards future themes is incredibly involved. Sometimes it's either a total surprise to the community, like Kome. No one would expect an RNG-based Warframe, but other ones I think players have anticipated before with thematic, we're on the same wavelength of the community sometimes, but we do have some tricks up our sleeve, I think. I don't know how, we can't say much, but...
I think as well, what's different about Tokyo Game Show and Kume is that we're showing for the very first time Kume and then releasing it next week. So this one's very different for us, but our typical kind of cadence is when we would have an update like this with a new Warframe, we'd have our dev stream, and it would probably be like a couple months out until that update goes live typically. And we get a lot of feedback on those dev streams, a lot of one-to-one communication. We have, a group of players that are like diehards that give us feedback on, the power strength and the balancing, and it is a very much a one-to-one conversation with our players on what feels good. And we've done, player-created Warframes in the past. Zaku was one of them. Nova, who's getting a little bit of a light rework and a deluxe skin in this update, was way back in the day a player-suggested Warframe, and we want to continue those kinds of things and have those conversations, even though we have stuff already planned out. But I think it's exciting when they get really involved in it, and that's what we want. We don't want to put out a frame that obviously no one cares about. So if players want to give us feedback on that on these dev streams, or if we post a dev workshop about something, they give us feedback all the time, and we always take that to heart and make changes or balances where we need to.
I always like in these interviews to give your team an opportunity to be transparent, kind of paint a picture about how long it takes to rebalance something, for example, if something's overpowered or underpowered or not being utilized. Talk about the process when you recognize that, mainly from the community, and how long that takes to fix, implement, update.
Balance and Warframe. We have sort of said our goodbyes to the idea of the pursuit of true balance. Our philosophy is we'd like to release a lot of things in the more power fantasy angle. We believe that our game is at its best when you're casting abilities and killing things. So generally we lean on the side of quite liberal application of balance. However, we do have circumstances where we do change something for balance, or we decide to rework it. When we want to rework something, we generally do stats plus feedback, in a happily matrimony, right? So it's what is the least played Warframe by a couple metrics, least played at the most senior player counts, so a lot of veterans ignore this frame because he's not good or she's not good in end game content, etc. And then we also just check the community, so we learn that way. And in these decisions, it's usually we try and do one major rework a year. So if you can imagine, okay, so you have 12-month cycles where you're doing major reworks. That's a long time to wait for someone's favorite frame. So we also try and squeeze in little polish passes in the meantime. So we're pretty consistent with one major rework a year plus polish passes throughout the rest of the year. And it usually is based on either our own pet peeves playing, we already know who next year is, but we can't say yet because of our hands-on, and also community feedback. It's very obvious. And in other cases, it's a long effort. So for instance, the Caliban rework that we're doing for this update for Kome and the Five Fates has really taken a long time because there were some pretty dramatic changes. And I don't want to say last minute, but there were just some changes that needed more scope, which makes it more work. So that's why we do one major one a year. And yeah, Caliban was the most requested one in the past 12 months, I think. So we're happy to finally release it on October 2nd.
And I think as well, we have those really planned ones and we talk about them very openly. And then there are frames, and we said this on, I think, TennoCon, that, with the launch of 1999, who is it? Trinity and Nyx are getting some light changes. So when we kind of update a character in the sense of giving someone a proto frame or even a deluxe skin, when we know we're kind of, showing love to a frame, we then take a look back at the community and internally in terms of, are people talking about this frame in the sense of we could use some tweaks to those. And like Reb said, just a light pass over of things. So some of these are kind of unexpected. Like no one really knows that we're touching Nova really in terms of giving her some tweaks, but it's, she's getting this beautiful new skin in Kume and the Five Fates, and we thought better time than not than to just kind of look at her kit, see the feedback, make a couple changes, and then see where that goes.
From a technical standpoint, this game's been around for over 11 years. What's that journey been like from PS3 to 4 to now 5 PC?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, is that challenging to keep up with the tech? Is it challenging to keep having to upgrade the game from a technical level, or has it become easier as technology gets more advanced? Easy is a bad word.
Yeah.
That's not a good word to describe it.
Warframe has been alive for 11 years, and it started PC only, and then we were a launch title on PS4, and then we added Xbox One, and now we're on next gen, the Series X, the Series S, the Nintendo Switch, and we're on PS5 and mobile, so the iOS. So we use our own engine, so that is extremely helpful for us to work fast, and it's also helpful for us to be able to support new platforms. I think Warframe is an incredibly optimized game, just shout out to our tech team. And over the years, we've always wanted to look its best. We used to, and still do, pride ourselves on like, wow, it's the best looking free-to-play game in terms of, different aspects, the graphics. And along the way, as recently as this year and last, we've actually phased out older rendering techniques, older rendering styles, so that every platform is using the same rendering. So we don't need to support two ways to render the game. So that has always had a little bit of bruising with it for players that maybe they have the same computer that they started Warframe with back in 2013. Yeah, and some people do, and we try and keep our min spec as robust as possible for players, and it is truly well optimized. But along the way, Warframe has grown. It's grown in our capabilities as well as developers and engineers. So we have new rendering techniques, we have new lighting systems, we have all of these things, and now with future updates, we're doing more fog systems just to make it look as good as possible. So in that regard, really high-end machines and consoles can look like the highest graphics settings, but we do still pride ourselves on being able to run on an iPhone or, a 4090, which we have in our demo PC today. And it's been pretty remarkable watching the team support every platform simultaneously for what is now a 5-platform game. And again, we do all of our own tech stack for development in the engine, so it grows with us.
I love it. And yeah, we take these kind of tech advances really seriously, because one small thing can honestly really drastically change in game. Like when we're talking about GI lighting and fog and stuff like that, and changing those areas in the game, it can really affect the fashion frame that we know our players love, and change that. So we're very transparent with people in terms of why we're doing this. We want to keep growing the game. We want it to look as good as possible without sacrificing performance and stuff like that. So there are kind of bumps along the road, like Reb was saying, in terms of you might have to go in, recolor your frame and stuff like that, and things. I know it's tough. It's tough. I got my color scheme, you got your color scheme, and when we change it, we understand it's a big deal, but I think our players really understand the longevity of making these changes, and they get really excited when Steve Sinclair talks about all the GI lighting and all the tech, because he's such a little tech nerd about that kind of stuff. But yeah, they're very understanding of when we do these things, and yeah, getting it on mobile and stuff like that is monumental to us, so they're understanding of it.
Games as a service is a challenging market to stay up to date in, and your team has done such a good job over the last 11 years, keep updating it and supporting it, like you said, adding new waveframes, updating the renders, the lighting. But once in a while, does the conversation ever come up, does Warframe 2 come up? Do we start over from scratch with all these new tools and new architecture that we can take advantage of, or do we stay? Does that come up at all in conversations?
No Warframe 2. We just want the one game and just ride it like a wave. I think the games as a service landscape is remarkable. When we were first starting out, I think we were one of the first and only free-to-play games on Steam in 2013 when we launched. There was only a handful other than the core Valve products, and now you can't look at the top 100 games without seeing 50 free-to-play games or games as a service. So it is very much if you are that, you're part of the current zeitgeist of the gaming release cadences. And for us, there's never been a moment where we've wanted to make an official sequel. For any desire that comes that like might like maybe we feel like, oh, a sequel would be a better idea, but we always trick ourselves into thinking that because the players have just invested so much in their accounts that we would never want to have them start over. And we just think we can keep telling the story. Like, we have narrative goals that continue with Warframe 1, right? There's no Warframe 2. And generally speaking, I think the thing that has allowed us to just keep going is we just keep our heads down and work really hard. Like, we try not, and sincerely, we just try not to look up and see what everyone else is doing. We just go. Like, we just are in our lane. Horse blinders are on, and we are making Warframe and only Warframe on our team. Now we have a sister project, Soulframe, and they're going to put their blinders on too, and we'll be together, because there's just, everyone thinks they know, and this isn't a criticism of other devs, because other devs are the best, but like, I would say industry analysts that don't make games like try and predict these trends, and I think it can be quite unfortunate and damaging if people are chasing a trend by someone that's never actually been in the trenches making the games. So
MOBAs come to mind when I
Yeah.
the MOBA chase. Oh my god. So many MOBAs. Like, when I was starting the industry, I'm like, oh my god, everyone had a MOBA.
Yeah.
And then it was an arena shooter for like a brief second.
And then
Battle Royale. Like,
Like, I'll never forget like the Lawbreakers to the like Cliffy B Studio.
Oh, and more. There was like Internals, the Eternals or something. There was another. Like, there were a lot of battle arenas coming out. Yeah, it was wild.
Yeah.
So, from an outsider looking in who knows nothing about game development, just plays games, what's the biggest misconception about your job? And then same question for you afterwards. Go in person.
Yeah. I think the biggest misconception about the creative director role in games in general is maybe one of the misconceptions is like, how do you train to be one, or like, what does it take to be one? And our path at our studio has been pretty unconventional. I think we right now, in the past year, we've had 3 creative directors. Steve gave me his role, and then Jeff is the creative director of Soulframe, and the 3 of us couldn't be any different. Steve is a programmer, Jeff is an animator, and I play the game. So like my skill set is just really knowing Warframe well, and knowing how every department hits their goals, and how long it takes to make a thing in each department, and then just put it all together and try and plan. So a misconception is that there's one way to be a creative director, and it's like, we have demonstrated that is not true even by the past 3 creative directors we've had. So for us, that, we have made it up as we went along, and I stay true to that philosophy, that no one knows what they're doing. As long as you know the game, that's good enough for me. So that's my philosophy. Maybe not others, but for community.
Yeah, I think a misconception about community is maybe that people think all we do is just like watch the internet and like just read comments and make forum posts and update notes and stuff like that, when at least for us and the way we operate is community is such an integral part of the development team, and it's honestly how Warframe really took off in the beginning, and knowing that we were very community focused and player focused, and that I think what's really good about our team is that our development team, the directors, the animators, everyone realize how important that community feedback is. And, luckily for us, we feel very empowered as a community team to go to our dev team with those issues. We're not scared to tell them, this isn't working, or players don't like this, or players love this. Can we do more of this? And they're very receptive to that. And I think that's really important for Warframe to continue the way it's going as very much a community-built game. And so for a community team to, be such an part of that dev team, I think is a misconception in terms of the kind of scope that we do. Our team, I think right now is 19 people, and that feels very small to me in terms of a community team. And our community team reaches out on multiple things. Some do design, some do narrative, some do, we have our streamers and stuff like that. So we touch almost every aspect of this game, and it's not just the forum posts, it's not just the live streams, it's not just going to events, it's actually having a part in creating the game and being that kind of bridge between the players and the devs, and they trust us to kind of bring that communication over all the time.